We're going to call to order our school board meeting of May 21st, 2013. Member Murneke, could you please call roll?
Member Cameron. Member Johnston. Here. Member Casper.
Here.
I'm here. Member Saligapunko. Here. Member Wasson. Here. Member Westholm. Here. Superintendent Grunset. Here. Deputy Clerk Bill Hansen. Here. Secretary Melinda Tebow. Here. Student Representatives Caitlin Parrish. Here. And Eric Thibault. Here. We have a quorum. Thank
you, Member Murneke. Board members and audience, please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to remind community members if they would like to address the board regarding anything that concerns them. We have a sign-up sheet in the corner near the board. Anybody who would like to address, please sign up, and we will be calling your name as part of our audience participation. So if you'd like to do that, please do that in advance. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion to approve this month's agenda, please? Motion made by Member Wasson and seconded by Member Saligapunko. Is there any discussion regarding the agenda? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Moving on to the reading and approval of school board minutes from our regular school board meeting on April 23rd, 2013. Could I get a motion to accept?
So moved.
Motion made by Member Wasson, seconded by Member Saligapunko. Any discussion? Member Johnston. I'm going to have to find you there. Hold on a sec. Want to press that again, please? There we go. Member Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't attend the last meeting, but I did, of course, listen to it on tape and everything. I do have one quick comment on the meeting. It was stated during the meeting that the new buildings have, I'm quoting, exceeded projected energy savings. That is not true. The review and comment on the long-range facility plan indicated we'd save about $834,000 since 2007. According to our official energy reports, we've only saved $100,000, certainly not anywhere near what our projected savings was. A couple examples for our new buildings are looking a little bit of concern about where, particularly looking at our new buildings, for example. Piedmont, we've doubled our energy costs. Lester Park, we've doubled our energy costs. And again, I'm just pointing that out. Would like to have a correction from the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Member Murneke.
Thank you. I had a nice conversation with Mr. Leiter about this, and there are energy savings from what we had been spending. And we talked about once Woodland is closed this spring, in a few weeks, there's going to be energy savings realized, and hopefully we can rid ourselves of Rock Ridge and Central and some other buildings. But long range, we have realized some energy savings.
Thank you, Member Murneke. Back to you, Member Johnston.
Well, I just want to end with a light here. With our neat weather we've had this last springtime here, it's going to throw all our projections off. But I did want to say something positive, and I hope we are going to do good. But I'm a little bit worried, though. But hopefully we'll have a warm spring next year.
All right. Thank you, Member Johnston. Seeing no further discussion regarding the school board minutes of April 23rd, could I have a move to a vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Moving on to school and community recognition. We are going to, as superintendent, Assistant Superintendent, sorry, I'm promoting you here. Sorry, Bill. Assistant Superintendent Crawford, could you please come forward with that? And the board will come down as well. So, board members, if you'd like, and student rep will meet down in front here.
Thank you. Members of the board, I'm pleased to present a very special teacher for recognition. This month, Carol Hubert, Lester Park Elementary, received the 2013 Goldfine Gold Star Teacher Award. Andy Goldfine made the announcement at a reception in Duluth and presented Ms. Hubert with a trophy and a $5,000 check. Ms. Hubert was among 9 elementary school teachers nominated for this award, which honors inspirational teachers for their dedication, skills, and hard work. Criteria included impact in the classroom, school and community, and efforts to pursue professional development. Ms. Hubert has been with our district for about 27 years and currently teaches first grade. Congratulations, Ms. Hubert.
Thank you very much, board members. It has been just an honor working with the many children, families, and colleagues that I have been so privileged to work with over the last 28 years in this system. But I have to mention to you the immense professional development opportunities that I have been afforded since I have been in this district. Let me name a few. Being part of the AFT ER&D, Educational Research and Dissemination, I got to go to Baltimore in 1997 and learn about teacher expectations and effects on student achievement. Later that year, Washington, D.C., to learn the foundations of ER&D courses 1 and 2. 6 months later, Eugene, Oregon, learning the applications of direct instruction in reading and math. In 2006-2007, spent 14 days at Chaska learning to become a local trainer in delivering effective professional development and organizing the classroom environment for teaching and learning. Then in 2001, Seascape, California, National Mentor Training at the Santa Cruz New Teacher Project Induction Institute, and was able to bring that program back to Duluth and mentor hundreds of teachers and teach them to be mentors. Being a member of the Math Committee since 1986 and being a member of the MCTM and the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, I was so lucky to be invited to the National Conference in Salt Lake City, Utah. And that was in 1991. I have to tell a cute little story. I'm going to the conference the next morning, and I'm in the conference center, and out front are all these people, and there's Tim Conway. Have any of you seen the Tim Conway specials over the years? Love Tim Conway. He's up there with a map of the United States, and he has some of the teachers pulled out front. Do you remember the little magnetic letters and numbers our children put on refrigerators? He was handing them to teachers and telling them different temperatures on the different parts of the United States. Only the problem was he was giving them the wrong numbers. They couldn't match the temperature. So I was laughing. Pretty soon this fellow grabs my arm. It's Henry the Franz Winkler. And he says, would you like to go up and help him? Well, sure. This is a math conference. Oh, I'm going to use equations to get those right. So I'm up there shooting those equations right and left, and pretty soon after it's over, Henry says, would you like to be in the Tim Conway special on Easter? Well, sure. So I'm signing this contract, right? Ignored it. A couple days went by. I see these people in the hallway, and they go, we saw the first cut last night. You're on it. You're going to be on the Tim Conway show. Well, then, do you remember Don Langley? He was the then math specialist. He goes and sends this article to the paper in Duluth saying, oh, Carol's going to quit teaching. She's going to be in this big... I watched that program on Easter. I was not in it. Because Tim Conway had the nerve to impersonate himself as a police officer, and they didn't believe it was him. They thought that was better. So I got cut, very short claim to fame, and back to business that next Monday in the classroom. My point being made, none of these opportunities would have been made available to me without the generosity of the Duluth Public Schools. And for that, I am ever so, so proud and grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you for your 28 years of dedicated service to our students here in ISD 709. I know as a board member and others here that have worked with you and seen your work, we truly appreciate what you've done. Moving on to reading of communications and petitions, we have none. I'm sorry, I've skipped the audience participation. Excuse me. We have 3 folks signed up to speak to the board this evening. First community member to speak is Alan Netland, followed by Mike Tuskin. Bill, would you please turn that light on for us?
It's blinking and you'll be...
There we go. Welcome, Alan.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Alan Netland. I'm a community member who's been active in the Duluth for Education committee looking at a possible levy. My understanding is that the board possibly be discussing that matter tonight. Just wanted to come here tonight to encourage you to proceed with levies. The school district class ratios, et cetera, are too high. We need additional money. The state has helped us out this year. We're happy about that, but certainly hasn't gone far enough. As I've mentioned in past school meetings, my kids graduated from public school here in Duluth, and they did a fine job. But now I have a grandson who's 1 year old and lives in Duluth. I'm concerned that he also has available opportunities that my children did not so many years ago. And that's not going to happen just by happenstance. That costs money, that's taxes, that means levy dollars. And so I want to encourage you to invest additional monies into our schools through levy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next up is Mike Tuskin, followed by Tom Albright. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, school board members. I have some handouts for you. Is it okay if I come up? So far, this has been a lot more fun than a city council meeting, I assure you. What you have before you is some stats and statistics on juvenile crime. This opportunity is something that maybe we should have asked for in probably 1999, something I've been very passionate about. A little background on this is in 1999, I was a SRO at Denfeld High School, and Mr. Westholm was a principal there. One of the things that really it was a shock coming from a middle school to a high school was how much time we spent doing reactive investigations on issues that happened outside of the building. The building seemed to function very well inside, but these opportunities for kids for 35 minutes to go out during lunch always plagued our caseload. That was where we spent the lion's share of our time and investigative time instead of coaching and mentoring these kids and doing a lot of the positive aspects of being a school resource officer. We found ourselves time and time again doing reactive investigations. So in 1999, I had the opportunity, then Superintendent Julio Almanza, to have a meeting with him about closed campuses. And the issue, believe it or not, at the time was lack of space in the buildings. Literally at Denfeld, where I was an SRO, he said we would have to start running lunches at 10 o'clock in the morning to feed everyone by virtue of no space. Well, some $300 million later, we have beautiful buildings, spacious, and we always were of the belief, we bided our time and we waited in the police department, and we thought once the red plan was completed, it would be really a no-brainer for us to get closed campuses. And we saw that from a number of perspectives, but we looked at it from neighborhood complaints. No doubt that is an issue. But we looked at it as building safety and also student safety. And really, the issues haven't changed at all. In fact, to some extent, they've gotten more severe. For instance, not to be an alarmist, and boy, we hope we never have to deal with this, but you look at these school shootings and you look at active shooting type incidents. These now proliferate through the United States, not just in schools, but certainly places of business, campuses, college campuses, places of education. A lot of time and energy is going into target hardening, trying to make buildings more safe, allow students to be more safe. And we've put, just recently, this last January, we did active shooter training. Marshall School was kind enough to give us their theater students, and we did real live training with all of our patrol division just in case this ever happens, that this won't be the first time we go in and we do this type of training or have engaged in an active shooter incident. The training was wonderful. We hope we never have to, but having an open campus, having kids coming in and out of a building, that does diminish our security, whether we want to admit it or not. You can't secure a building. It's tough enough to secure it if you have people coming and going, beginning and end of day, much less people in and out through lunch periods. So, to get back on to the stats and statistics, just to review some of the issues. Now, these are all stats that are taken from our record system from a Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. On the first one, you'll see our contacts with juveniles. You notice on the weekends, so you see the weekend numbers when people are reporting crimes or having contact with juveniles. Look at the numbers Monday through Friday. For the last 3 years. The vast majority of our contacts happen with juveniles during the school day when they're in school. A lot of these contacts, on the very last page you'll see time of day, spikes during our lunch periods, certainly again spikes at 3 and 4 p.m. It's an indicator that we're having contact with a lot of juveniles during those periods of time, especially when they should be in school or secured in school. The next page deals with adult and juvenile arrests and contacts. Again, this is an 8 to 4. This shows you the number of contacts we have with people Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Going on to the pie charts. These are some of the incidents that we have contact with folks, with juveniles, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. You'll see the vast majority is kid trouble type calls. That can be anything from speeding, trespassing, can be theft, litter, where they don't have really a CAD code for it, so they call it kid trouble. Then on to assaults and fights, drugs and alcohol, traffic events. And that is a pretty constant theme you'll see through the next few pie charts here. The numbers change a little bit year to year, but predominantly same type of events year in and year out. The last 2 pages, the Denfeld and East, what we did in these was to identify an area where kids would travel for lunch periods. We know that Denfeld kids typically go all the way to Central to McDonald's, and they go into their surrounding neighborhoods where there's fast food and other opportunities to eat. So we tried to pull crash statistics and traffic stop information. And this is difficult to nail down every single juvenile event and what the correlation is. We had to draw parameters because we know that they're not going to be just stopped at Denfeld or East High School and addresses. So we were able to use our GIS mapping and pull an area and then do some analysis. Again, traffic incidents, kids are getting stopped by the police, they're violating, they're speeding, distracted driving, those are those type of incidents. And finally, on to the last 2 pages, this is just a timeline that shows when we're having contact with juveniles at both Denfeld and East, and when the peak periods of time are. You'll see the spikes, 7, 8 in the morning, it's not. You'll see spikes over the lunch periods, and then certainly at the end of the day. Probably not news to most of you that we have a lot of contact with students during their lunch times. I hate to come up here and just say that this is an easy issue, because I know certainly it isn't, but I want you to know a little bit about what we've done here in the police department trying to combat these concerns. December 2010, we passed a ordinance that was a collaborative effort between Lutheran social services and regional educators in southern St. Louis County to keep kids in school. The ordinance lacks the effectiveness because open campuses, we have contacts with kids regularly. It's hard to discern who's truant and who's not when you have kids coming and going from a building. We also have an engaged SRO staff.
Mike, I'm going to ask you to wrap up in the next minute if you could,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
This issue is very important to us, certainly for those reasons. Certainly, we feel very strongly that in order to keep our kids safe, keep our buildings safe, and to reduce the issues in the community, we need to close campuses. We feel that the statistics will support that. We know that there's going to be concerns. Nothing is going to happen easily, but we're all leaders in this community. We realize that we have to make tough decisions, but really, if we truly are concerned about our children's safety, we really have to take a very serious look at closing campuses. These kids are having opportunities to get themselves into trouble, to break the law, to be victims, when if we weren't allowed out of these buildings, they would be much more apt to be in structured time where they wouldn't have those opportunities. Reducing opportunities reduces crime, reduces victimization, and that truly is what closing a campus is about.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Next speaker is Tom Albright, and again, reminding any of our community members who would like to address the board to please sign up on the right side of the room, and we will get you forward. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you to the board and Superintendent Gronseth for the chance to speak briefly. My name is Tom Albright, and I'm a proud graduate of the Duluth Public Schools, graduated from East in 1997, and my wife and I now live out in the Denfeld neighborhood. Don't currently have children, but I came because I wanted to speak out in favor of a levy referendum moving forward and the board moving forward with that. Despite not having kids, I think I still see sort of a twofold reason for supporting a levy. First of all, I want to see the direct benefit to the students themselves. I feel, as a graduate of the Duluth Public Schools, that I had an outstanding education with great resources, great opportunities, and I want to see that continue for students now and students that will be coming down the road as well. But I also think that there's a strong benefit in supporting an educational learning levy for the broader community that a learning levy can impact, I recognize the value that the schools have as anchors of our neighborhoods and as selling pieces when new families are moving to town, and so really just recognizing that broader impact that our schools have. Of course, I want to support a learning levy for students that are currently and going to be in, but I think there's broader benefit that our community realizes. So I know you'll be considering that later, and I encourage you to continue to move forward towards a learning levy referendum this fall. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Member Johnson, any further names? Okay, we do have a couple more speakers who signed up. Marcy Stromgren, followed by Laura Nitschke. Welcome, Marcy.
Thank you, Superintendent, members of the board. Energy savings will be one of my real quick topics. Went to a very fine concert at East last week. About died in the heated auditorium for the 4th time. That's probably 1 year energy savings. And I hear from the staff and teachers that the hallways are too cold and the auditorium is always too hot. Maybe there's something wrong with your design. Now, you want to raise my taxes again with an operational levy, I'll tell you right now. I'm going to make sure, to the best of my ability, to make sure it's defeated. You just raised me 10% more on my taxes. Throwing money at the problem is not going to work. You first of all have to fix the major part of the problem. I sat here at a committee meeting to hear a cute little story by Mr. Murneke about how they closed the candy store that I used to work in Denfeld. You didn't catch any of us stealing the candy bar. That was the reason for closing the candy store, because the kids were stealing. What's the problem here? There's a moral problem going on. A very moral problem, not only with the students stealing, but an advisor or anybody else that lets them get away with it. I not only would have been reprimanded by the person in charge of the candy store, I would have been sent to the principal's office, and my parents would have heard about it, so I would have been probably slapped around about 3 different times. Not physically slapped by somebody in school, but verbally. But I didn't try it again. I thought that was appalling, and I didn't think it was one bit funny. 18 years in smoking. Thank you, Ms. Wasson, for bringing that up. There is a law in the state of Minnesota, you're right. It says no smoking till you're 18, and yet you tell the kids they got to go off the campus and do it, and you can't control it because they're addicted. Isn't this a good time to stop that addiction? Good heavens, don't you know what the damage of smoking does to people? There's enough advertisements out there. There's enough money been thrown at that problem, and we're letting the kids get away with it because they're addicted. And yes, thank you, officer. Close campus. The only ones that should be off campus that have the privilege to do that. It's not a right. It's a privilege that you earn because you are upstanding, you're moral, you get good grades. I don't want to see my taxes raised again, and I will help to defeat it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stromgren. Moving on to our last signed-up speaker, Laura Nitschke. Welcome, Laura.
I've never done this before, so...
We'll help you through it.
Okay, the guy in the pink. My name's Laura. I live in Lakeside, over by the new East High School. I'm here with a neighbor, and we've been talking about the increased number of cigarette butts and trash since the East came to our neighborhood. So I'm here to ask for you to consider some sort of arrangement, closed campus or not, to minimize the impact of our neighborhood. I know we all have to get along, and what I don't like seeing is the cigarette butts And the sidewalks, they get stuffed in my retaining wall, they get placed in my flower gardens, and it's just a really big annoyance to me, but like a small annoyance to everything else that your district has to go through. But just the sheer amount of trash wasn't there when the old Ordine was there and it was a middle school. That's all I wanted to say. I don't like seeing the trash, but it doesn't seem right to punish the whole school population to have it be a closed campus, because I'm sure it's just a core group of students who are coming into our neighborhoods and leaving trash and cigarette butts behind. But it'd be nice if something could be done. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. That is our last signed-up speaker. We are going to move on to reading of communications and petitions. We have none in our packet this month, board members, so we will move on to the report of the superintendent. Welcome, Mr. Gronseth.
Thank you. A couple exciting things to announce this week, or this month rather. It just came out that Newsweek creates a list of America's best high schools, and for the state of Minnesota, East High School was named in the top 25 in the state of Minnesota. So that is pretty exciting. Yeah, definitely. I'd also like to congratulate our upcoming graduates from both Denfeld and East High School. They have represented Duluth very well as they've gone through our schools, and they are earning scholarships this year that range in the millions when you add up all of those scholarships. And it's our city has so much to be proud of with what our kids achieve. And we wish them well as they graduate and pursue their dreams. And speaking of scholarships, tonight is the night that we give out the Hayes Scholarship, and I would invite Assistant Superintendent Ed Crawford to come on up and give out those scholarships. If you want to. I believe Mr. Crawford is going to give a little history of the scholarship and give the amount.
Okay. This is the Hayes Family Scholarship Trust. Fred Hayes graduated from Duluth Central High School in 1915. The Hayes Family Scholarship Trust provides an annual scholarship for a graduate of each Duluth two high schools who are enrolling in a post-secondary school in the fall. Two non-renewable awards of $2,287.50 each will be awarded this evening, one to an East High School graduate and one to a Denfeld graduate. So we're going to do the drawing at this point. And the first drawing will be for East, I believe.
Lee Kane is the winner for East. So.
By the way, I just wanted to say that the scholarship is given out by putting the names of all seniors into a bowl, and it's a completely random drawing. And as long as the student is going to some kind of school after school, they get the scholarship. So we do draw alternates just in case.
The winner from Denfeld is Katie Albertson.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Crawford and our two student representatives for drawing those two names. What a great opportunity for our seniors at both Denfeld and East to have this opportunity to receive some help towards their post-secondary education. And also thank you, Superintendent Gronseth, for your report. We are now moving on to reports of standing committees, board members. Member Johnston is going to read Member Cameron's education report in her absence. Thank you, Member Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On our Education Committee, I'll just go through our numbers, informational items. The first one was a presentation by the Minnesota Partnership for School Connectedness presentation. The second one was a Duluth Schools agricultural class and FFA presentation, which was Future Farmers of America. It was a very exciting presentation by two students. And they were asking some basic stuff like having 1 hour classes instead of 2 hour classes, and it was very well received by the school board. Third item was proposed multicultural communication glossary presentation. The presenter was not available for that presentation, but we had a lot of glossaries and just proper terminology, how we should describe incidences so we don't insult cultural groups. Next presentation was a presentation on the actual Key Zone presentation. And people don't know that. It's an after-school program. We have about 1,000 students that participate in that. That's out of school hours. About 40% of those get a scholarship, and it seems to be working quite well. It's a partnership between the Y and the school, and it's working out really well. And that was informational. Grant applications, we had an alternative delivery of specialized instructional services grant application, and this is from the actual MDE, Minnesota Department of Education, in reference to special ed, and that's a thing that we've been working on a lot. Another grant was a Purpose Center for Arts Education grant proposal. And that's actually quite good. It's for about $62,000 for each year, and we're very thankful for that proposal. Another grant is from the Northland Foundation grant application. This is for $2,500. Another grant is a Floyd K. Johnson, and that's going to the Office of Educational Equity. And that's for $2,000, also going into providing to help to eliminate the achievement gap. And we're much grateful for that. Action items. Mr. Chair, do you want to take over on the action items, or do you want me to keep going?
Member Johnson, you can keep going.
Okay, action item is the first one is a proposed closed center for lunch at high school. And the administration is recommending that beginning the 2013-14 school year, both Denfeld and East be closed during lunchtime for all students. At our committee meetings, we had presentations by the principals, and the principals actually, excuse me here, yeah, that's correct. The principals and assistant principals are recommending that we keep open, this campus to stay open. We had a very good discussion on that. And again, Mr. Chair, take over here. Do we want to, is this something we're going to approve individually, which I'd probably think
We'll
we
pull that
should.
out for a separate vote after.
Okay, all right. Okay, next item is policy 5085, school discipline policy. This minor changes to that policy. Another one is 4015, prohibiting harassment, violence, and bullying. Again, this is minor. This is actually minor changes again to that policy. Again, another is a co-curricular participation fees. That's revising our policy 6140.10, which is fees that students must pay to participate. And the other one is a resolution accepting grants to the public schools. And we have several of those from the Duluth Superior Area Foundation, Scott D. Anderson Leadership, Northland Foundation.
Member Johnson, I'm going to ask you to go right to page 56. We might as well vote on that resolution right now while you're reading that. So if you would go to page 56 and read the resolution in your booklet.
Okay, resolution, acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools, whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the grant in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described grants from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public School wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these various donors. Should I?
Yeah, why don't you just list each of those five? You don't need to do this, just list the five.
Okay, we had 5 grants. One is from the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, which is a Scott D. Anderson Leadership Foundation. Another one is a Northland Foundation for $3,000. I should have mentioned the first grant was for $25,490. Our third grant is from the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, Duluth Public Schools Endowment Fund for $12,723. The other one is from, fourth one is from the MSHLS Foundation for $2,200. Our final grant on this resolution is from Flint Hills, and with the expenses associated with a field trip to the state capitol in Minnesota Zoo.
Would you move the entire resolution then?
I would move this resolution.
And a second by Member Murneke. Any discussion regarding the acceptance of the grants listed below? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Moving on back to the agenda, Member Johnston.
Okay, we're at item number F, which is extended trip requests. Again, East High School physics students travel to Chicago, Illinois, early part of May. The Denfeld School Automotive Program will be traveling to Kansas City, Missouri in June. East High School culinary arts students and instructors will be traveling to Kansas City also in June. Similar convention, same time, same place. Duluth Public Schools FCCLA Hero students will be traveling to Nashville, Tennessee on July 8th to compete at the National Leadership Conference and attend leadership training. 11th and 12th grade HOSA students will be traveling to Nashville, Tennessee in June to compete at the National HOSA Leadership Conference. Superintendent, what is HOSA? Can you tell that? I'm sorry, I don't know, audience.
Health Occupation Students of America.
Okay, thank you. Then we also have item number G, which is continuation of change in contractual day, which is an audiologist issue. And we also have elementary science adoption. adoption for a new elementary science kits. Some of our science kits are dating from the 1980s, and we're looking at upgrading those kits. And the studies went through by the elementary science teachers. It's going to cost about $130,000, but it seemed to be well received and well worth the investment. Diploma requests, we have 3 diplomas. One is Miles Albert Palmer, Jessica Lee Scalbro, and Jordan Stanley Potey. That finishes the report.
So you move the entire Education Committee repeat?
I'll remove that, yes.
I would like to, if board members are okay, I'd like to pull out the vote on the proposed campus lunch high schools discussion separate from the rest of the Education Committee report. Any issues with that, board members? All right, then let's discuss the Education Committee report. I'm sorry, I need a second for Member Johnston, seconded by Member Murneke. If board members would like to pull out individual items from the education report prior to the discussion or vote on the high school campus. Seeing none, let's move to a vote on the Education Committee report minus the closed campus discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, board members, let's move back then to the proposed campus discussion. And I may start this discussion by asking Superintendent Gronseth to kind of give us a bit of an update on this and a bit of a clarification of some of the impacts of this decision, whether it's in support of this or non-support of it. So, Superintendent Gronseth, please. There you go.
The question of closing campuses for lunch or not has been a discussion the board has been having for several years now. Every year about this time it comes up, and we always have very healthy debate on the benefits and the cons of closing campus or keeping campus open. Certainly we think about our business neighbors by both schools, knowing that our students do financially support some of the businesses surrounding them. Certainly listening to Officer Tuscan tonight, we know that there are some issues with students in the community during these times as well. All of these were part of the discussion that came up. There's also financial concerns. With closing campus, our role changes somewhat. We will need additional staff. We may need some more space, some more seating in our cafeterias for there to be room for all our kids to be seated, and also some extra equipment to handle the number of students that come through the line. I think that our student delegates could probably speak to this as well, and I see his light is blinking there. Eric's.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Gronseth. Student Representative Tebow. Let me get there we go. Oh, hold.
Turn your light off.
No, we're just.
There you go.
All right, thank you. I just want to address two concerns that the student body has. Firstly, there's the concern of space. If there were to be closed lunches, then at least in each 3 lunch periods, the second and third lunch period, I've heard from some of my friends and classmates in those lunches that there are already people who sit on the floors or leaning on walls because there aren't enough space to eat even with open campuses, and that those problems would be compounded if we were to institute a closed campus program. And also, the students understand the concerns with safety and liability that the school undertakes with an open campus, but what we would really like to see is other forms of discipline or control of problem behaviors before we go directly to measures like a closed campus. Other options would, the student body would be responsive to options that aren't necessarily as drastic if it's understood that that's an alternative to having a closed campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Representative Tebow. Student Representative Peirce, would you like to also?
I think for Denfeld, space isn't as much of an issue. We only have 2 lunches right now, and at the beginning of the year, I know I couldn't find a table sometimes, but towards the end of the year, it seemed like there were less people in our lunch. Maybe because of spring and people were getting out, or maybe because there was people leaving school towards the end of the year. But we would have to add another lunch, and that would change scheduling. But the space thing, I don't see as much of a conflict, but it obviously is a problem at East.
Okay, thank you. Board members. Member Wasson.
I said it last week. This issue we have discussed at length several different times, and I am very conflicted on this. I think it's a very tough situation, particularly hearing from Officer Tuscan. It's very compelling, what we're saying. One of the things that was said to us, closing campus would help truancy. We all know when our children aren't in school, they're not learning. The thing that's holding me back right now for voting in favor of closing campus is the monetary issue. And plain and simple, we don't have the resources to do this right. And as I said last week, and I just heard Eric say it as well, and it's unfortunate that this comes at the end of the year when we're all sort of saying, okay, it's the end of the year and we don't have time or energy anymore. I don't want to be resistant to this change. I do think it can work, but I think if we're going to implement it at this point, I would like to hear that we can do something to make our neighbors happier and our kids safer by allowing open campus to continue. If there's, I would imagine, a cost that would be much less than what we were given last week. So if there was a remedy for that, or if one of the principals or something would like to chime in, I don't know. But that's where I am right now. We don't have the resources to close campus. It's frustrating for me. But if we can do something so that our students are more responsible, and I know it's a core group, just like the neighbor said, we need to do something to help them.
Member Sligopunko.
Thank you. I know since I've been on the board, we have discussed this issue, and since I do volunteer at the high school every 2 weeks, I'm there over the lunch period, and I do notice that there are not that many kids that leave school. Most of the kids like that, and I'm trying to figure out why we've considered it a punishment to close campuses, because we have beautiful buildings with these gorgeous atriums with furniture that the kids are really liking using. I mean, it's almost like a college campus. It's not like it's a punishment. In fact, I know a lot of kids are loving their new space. So I haven't figured out why by closing campus that would be a punishment, because the kids get a chance to communicate with each other. One of the things that struck me is last week when our principals came, they had some advantages to closing the campus. And I'm going to read them because these are some of the things that we are looking at trying to achieve as a school district. One is decrease the truancy, which Member Wasson just mentioned, reduce substance abuse during school hours, neighborly atmosphere for our residents, increase use of food service. And I just have to interject here. I have been trying the food service when I've been there now, and it's really nice. There's a lot of fruits and vegetables, fresh. It's really improved from many years ago. Increase in attendance, which translates to increased student performance and test scores. Decrease in juvenile crimes and activity when students are in school. Increased safety and security. Decreases the potential for accidents outside of school setting. All of those pieces are advantages to having a closed campus. You know, I know the way this is presented, Superintendent, we have closing for students in 9 through 12, but I would be willing to look at it a modified closing, having the 12th graders have an open campus. And I know there was concern about having cards, but I would like to see what our neighbors across the bridge do. They do allow their seniors to have an open campus. And I really, you know, we've put this off year after year, and I say, let's just try it for a year, and if it doesn't work, I'll be the first one to say, let's go back. But I honestly believe we should really look at trying it. I don't think it is anything, especially the safety. I know there have been crashes. You know, kids get out of school and they have to hurry and they're going to go and get some fast food. And I think the safety issue is a really big reason to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Sligopunko. Moving on to Member Murneke.
Thank you. Along with the advantages, the principals also had a long list of disadvantages. I thank Principal Sconyers and Principal Knapp for doing the work they did. I've had some experience in closed campus. When I was a teacher, we did close the campuses. And at that time, we had the advantage of having 2 assistant principals at each of the high schools. We also, at that time, hired 5, if I'm not mistaken, supervisory personnel to assist with the closing of the campus. We don't have that now. We only have 1 assistant principal at each, and they have plenty to do right now. My first opposition to this or my first statement about this is it'd be great to have a closed campus. The idea of it is great, but at this time, we don't have the personnel, we don't have the funds to carry this out. It'd be very difficult, and again, I've had experience in this. One of the things that I know from being in Duluth for a long time is this is an age-old problem. Some of you aren't around enough to know the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, but you've had a problem where high school students have left the campus, and it's just something that the school systems have been fighting for a long, long time. And I'll go back to this statement as if we can hire enough personnel, if we can have another assistant principal taking care of all the paperwork that's going to be involved and all of the face-to-face confrontations with the students, if we had enough supervisory assistants, I'd be in favor of this. But at our present budget right now, and I know people don't get angry at me, but this is just from the heart. At our present budget right now, I just don't think it's feasible.
Thank you, Member Murneke. Member Johnston.
Sure, I've got some comments too. It's kind of interesting how this came about in the school board here. I think it was a month ago we talked about it. We were kind of leaning toward it, or the administration was, the principals were kind of leaning toward that. We gave the principals direction to go back, look over this more, put some costs together, and the principals came back recommending not to close the campuses. I thought their reasoning was sound. Again, I'm not an education expert nor a principal and know how to handle schools, but I do give a lot of weight to our principals, and I think we have to listen to their recommendations. I did talk to other people as well. I went to the parents group at Denfeld. As a rule, parents kind of like, some of the parents, particularly in the Denfeld area, like to be able to have their children come home at lunch. Some do. And people were concerned about not being able to do that or adding more confusion, more problems for their children. Also talked to the Weston News Business Club. They're kind of, some personally, some thought it should be closed. The businesses don't really want it closed. And I think it's okay to say that businesses are concerned because Denfeld has a tradition of interfacing with their businesses. And we in West Duluth, Denfeld has a tradition of always being open. We have more stores in the Denfeld area than does the East campuses. And that's okay to acknowledge that because we do want to be good neighbors with our business community, and I think that's all right. I think that if we are going to do, we have to do it right, and my concern is here, I hear the reasoning that we've all heard, the reasons why it might be good to close. But I think it is going to be really hard. We have a lot of entrances in all our schools. We don't have cameras on all of them. It's going to take quite a big investment and effort and training both our staff and our students to get to that point, and I don't think we're going to be real successful at it for a while. I think we really have to be a little careful before we jump on that. I think, too, we as high school, we are preparing our students for adulthood. I think we do have to give them some freedom. We've had that traditional freedom in Duluth, and I think that, again, I don't have a real strong opinion on it one way or another, but people I talk to, I think that I will be voting to keep the campuses opened. Just because I think that most of the people seem to be saying that, and I'm probably leaning mainly on the principal's recommendation because I think they are the ones we should be listening to in our schools. Thank you.
Moving on to Member Westholm.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a little hoarse, so I hope I can get the words out. Member Murneke, I went through a lot of this. After 17 years in the high schools as a principal and assistant principal, I dealt with all kinds of lunch issues and other things. And there are some pluses to closing a campus, but everybody recognizes that we don't have the staff to do it. But I would like to explore a little bit closer that modified system that Superior uses and take a look at that. And is it feasible? Is it, then you're granting seniors. I mean, most seniors by the end of the year are 18, they're legal adults, and so it's a little different situation with seniors in terms of maturity, hopefully. And so I think it would be worth our while, perhaps, for somebody to explore that Superior system of a modified system and start slowly that way. So that's where my thoughts are.
Thank you, Member Westholm. Back to you, Member Sliga-Punko.
Thank you. Just one of the reasons, I understood, and actually Officer Tuscan, I think, brought it up about years ago, there wasn't enough room. Julio Almanzo, I remember that too, part of PTSA Council, there was not room in our schools. Now we have room. We have doors that all have cameras on them and all have alarms. If they're not the main door. Actually, the main door does too once they're locked. So to me, it seems like it would be easier because you have all these cameras and you have the alarm system set up for the doors, and people can't just get in them like they used to be able to. Before we had to lock all the doors, Mern, which you remember, or remember Murneke. But now everything is locked. But I would like to maybe, I don't know if I should make an amendment for this, because right now administration, you are recommending campuses closed 9 through 12. I'd even be willing, this would be really putting out on a limb, I actually jokingly said this last week when I was at school, that maybe we could close campus for everyone except for seniors at one school and not the other, since they have all the, that would be going too far though, maybe. Okay, never mind. But I think, I don't know, should we do, I would like to do an amendment or something to say, okay, maybe seniors, maybe let's look at trying this for this fall and see how it works, with the intention that if it doesn't, go back to close by second semester for, back open, but for seniors. I'm just wondering, so I know what you guys are going to say, yeah.
Have you made that as a formal motion, or is that a point of discussion?
I decided how I need to do it.
All right, I'm going to weigh in just for a second for a clarification. We've heard concerns on both sides. Superintendent Gronseth, if we as a board decide to delay this vote for an opportunity to further assess what some of our neighbors are doing that is successful, or what other districts are doing that is successful in this area, can we do that to delay this vote, or to send it back to the administration for discussion at a future board meeting? And I'm not sure how board members would feel about that. So we could move to table it
For further discussion.
for further discussion, and that would maybe give us as a board a little more opportunity to explore potentially a modified campus. And I'm just throwing that out. I'm going to move. Member Johnston, I'll get to you in just a second. I'm going to allow board member or student representative Theobald first. Is your light on there, young man? There we go.
All right, I'd just like to again reaffirm the student body's position that, at least at East, that we're looking that a variation on perhaps a closed campus that's only closed for 9 through 11, or some other way of running a campus that's safer and more effective, but isn't necessarily the kind of lockdown situation that a completely closed campus would be a preferable alternative to the completely closed campus, and that we'd be willing to explore those options with the administration.
Thank you. Student Representative Persch.
Another thing I've heard from some of the students at Denfeld, because I know even if you leave it open to seniors, there are seniors that cause problems. And I think if we had some sort of, like, you have to have a like some sort of incentive, like a GPA of 2.0 or above, or some sort of academic standing, or no ends or using conduct, something like that to also alleviate the problems in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Student Representative Persch. Member Johnston.
First, Mr. Chair, I'd kind of support your idea to table it. But
could you say that again?
I would support your... I support. But just in case we don't get there, I just wanted to bring up here that it's just from a procedural point of view, it's a little bit confusing, because this says that administration is recommending it, but yet the principals recommended that we didn't. So if we do go forward with this, whatever you call it we're talking about here, we do have to clarify it. Why I'm bringing that up, really important, is that we've had other confusion over some of our policies, like say the 0 hour, that we don't really quite know what we did. So if we do go ahead, I want to clarify what we're doing, but with that said, Mr. Chairperson, I do support your idea to table whatever we're doing here to clarify better and talk to the students more and look at some other options.
Okay, thank you, Member Johnson. Member Murneke.
If we do table, we will continue the current policy.
Correct.
Until we change it.
Correct.
Are you moving?
Do we have, I have not made a motion. Member Sligapunko, did you have something further? No?
I just was wondering if you had made a motion.
I have not at this point.
Okay, I was just checking to make sure. Can I just say one real quick thing?
Yes, please.
When we're talking about people that have spoken to students or parents, I have spoken to many parents at East, and they would like to see a closed campus. So I just want to put that input.
Thank you, Member Sligapunko. Member Wasson.
If there is a motion to table, I hope that administration has heard that we need to quickly have further conversations with maybe Students for the Future again, or students and administration at both schools, so that we can quickly help our neighbors and be good neighbors. And that's a concern. That's part of driving this. So before it's tabled and we can't discuss, I do hope that we will be able to very soon, tomorrow, have our students getting out and cleaning up.
Thank you, Member Wasson. Superintendent Gronseth.
I know that the principals have been working with the students, not just recently, but historically, been working with student groups who have been helping us to be good ambassadors to the neighborhood from the school, helping to clean up. And I know that we'll be continuing those conversations. I do want to say that at the heart of this issue is the financial strain on the district. To be able to carry off a modified schedule, we would need some way of monitoring which kids are seniors, which kids are juniors, which kids have the grades or the conduct, and there would need to be some kind of identification card with a scanner, because there's just no way that our supervisory staff could tell one student from another. And so that would be a purchase of hardware, of software, and additional staff to be able to handle that. And that's one of the largest challenges with the entire topic, is the additional cost to the district to be able to close it. As has been pointed out, the recommendation was initially to close. As Member Johnston said, initially we were more positive about this, about closing. The more we dug into this and the more we realized how much it was going to cost, the implications it had for staff, the implications it had for our facilities, the more we realized that it wasn't as feasible. So if you do vote on this issue, remember that a positive vote, so an aye, would be closing the campus, and a nay would be leaving them open.
Thank you, Superintendent Gronseth. I just have a couple of things. I appreciate the concern that you have, and you have every day, for the budget, and that's a great concern. And your mention of it being at the heart of this, and I would beg to differ a little bit on that. I think the heart of it is our student safety and their education, along with, so it's a multi-hearted issue. So it's a balance between their safety, their education, and our budget. And we know that, and you battle that every day, and I appreciate you and your staff's efforts on that. I'm going to make and I'm not sure, make a motion to remove this from the agenda, to table it, and for discussion at a very near future board meeting, like our June board meeting. That would give our administration a little more time to put some solid numbers together on a modified campus, or other alternatives that would achieve both a secure campus on a budget-conscious parameter that we have to deal with. So I'm making a motion to table this for a near future board meeting. Is there a second for that? Seconded by Member Saliga-Punko. Discussion regarding that?
There is no discussion.
I'm sorry, there is no discussion. All those in favor of tabling this signify by saying aye. Aye. And nay?
Nay.
That carries 5-1 with Member Murneke voting no. All right. Thank you, board members, for that, and we look forward to further lively discussion and further information coming to us as we wrestle with that decision. We are now moving on to our Human Resources Committee meeting report. Member Westholm.
You did before.
Okay. All right. The Human Resources Committee report for May is following items. There's staffing report action items, which I'll go through shortly. Then there's other action items which we will be considering one at a time. One is a placeholder for termination of certified hourly staff. Another one is a placeholder for termination of non-tenured certified staff. And finally, there's a placeholder for termination of certified long-term substitutes. And the final issue is hourly substitute pay rate sheet, which is attached to our stuff, and I guess we have to vote on that too. And there are no other informational items at this time. There's no HR or HR future items at this time. So let's go to the human resources action items for 5/21, May 21st. First of all, there's 2 certified appointments. There's 17 certified co-curricular appointments. There's 2 certified extensions. There's 21 certified leaves. There's 4 certified long-term subs. There's 2 certified resignations. There's 6 certified retirements. Those numbers will probably continue to go up for a while. There are 3 certified temporary increases. There are 3 non-certified appointments. There's 1 non-certified extension. There are 13 non-certified leaves. There's 1 non-certified promotion, 1 non-certified reclassification, 7 non-certified resignations, 3 non-certified retirements, 2 non-certified temporary decrease in position, and 1 non-certified termination, and 1 non-certified temporary increase. And so that's the action items that we have for this month. And I guess
let's move that and vote on that separately. So
Yeah,
would you move
yeah.
the action items from the human resources?
So I'm moving the human resources action items for our approval.
Could I get a second? Seconded by Member Saliga-Punko. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, back to you, Member Westholm.
Now we'll move on to other action items, and the first one is a placeholder, Resolution HR-5-13-3091, and that's termination of certified hourly staff. And this year, unfortunately, we have 24 people that will have to be terminated. And I'll read the resolution first. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that the employment of the following hourly teachers shall terminate effective at the end of the school day on June 7th, 2013, unless another date is indicated below, in which case the employment of the individual shall terminate on that date. And then on the bottom, be it further resolved that the clerk of the school board shall notify such teachers in writing before July 1st, 2013 of the termination of their employment. And there are 24 people, again, on this list of the termination of certified hourly staff. And I don't know if you have, Mr. Swarsky?
Why don't we move that and second it and then open it for discussion?
Well, I'm moving this resolution.
Seconded by Member Saliga-Punko. Discussion. Moving to Mr. Swarsky.
I just wanted to remind the board that the termination of certified hourly staff and the termination of certified long-term substitutes is somewhat a formality. It's a housekeeping procedure that's done every year. These hourly teachers are hired as needed on an annual basis. The same with the long-term subs that are ending their service at the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Swarsky. Any discussion regarding Resolution HR-5-13-3091? Seeing none, let's move. Oh, I'm sorry, Member Johnston.
Sure, I know we always say this is a housekeeping issue. Does that mean we're expecting to likely bring these people back, or is that or typically what happens? I know we're looking at typical things here, but just tell me some more, Mr. Swarsky, if you could.
A number of these individuals work at our adult learning center, and they do. A number of these, many of these people are in and out on an annual basis. They typically work, well, it's below a half-time status, but the majority of the people on this list you're seeing are working a .35 or less, so basically 14 hours or less a week.
But why do we terminate them? I mean, is this more of it's a housekeeping thing, but it just, I know I've had problems with this before when we've kind of went through this and tried to terminate people, but I just have to express it again. It just doesn't, it seems to give a uncertainty that's really not necessary for some of our staff. And I mean, yeah, maybe they're expecting that they're going to get terminated, they're going to come back again, but why do we terminate them? And again, I'm just concerned about just that, and I know I've expressed it before, but I always have to express that. It just doesn't seem to be them. Seems like there should be a better way to do it.
Yeah, many of the people on here are as we need to fill, in some cases they fill in gaps, like a one section of a course, or maybe, well, not even 2 sections of a course perhaps. I would give them a 0.4. But again, we don't enter into our ongoing contracts with our hourly individuals. They're as we need on an annual basis.
Just one more question. Are these people that are all kind of more hourly then, and they're not, is that what makes these people different from, say, our other certified staff? Or we have hourly certified, so are all the hourly certified on this list?
Yes, these are hourly certified people paid off a timesheet. Below a 0.35 or below, there's a specific rate that they're paid. Above that, they are converted on an hourly basis off the teacher's step and lane scale.
Okay, thank you. I'm probably going to vote against this just because it seems like we should be able to do better, but I understand where you're coming from here.
Thank you, Member Johnston. Member Westholm, you have comment, or?
No,
okay.
We vote on each one individually? Yes.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, let's move to a vote on this resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-1 with Member Johnston not supporting it. Moving on to the next resolution, Member Westholm.
The next resolution is HR-5-13-3092, and it's termination of certified probationary non-tenured staff. Whereas during the first 3 years of consecutive employment, all teachers in the public schools and cities of the first class are deemed to be in a probational period of employment, during which period the school board may renew, not renew any teacher's annual contract as the school board shall see fit. The term teacher includes every person regularly employed as a principal or to give instruction in a classroom or to superintend or supervise classroom instruction or as a placement teacher and visiting teacher. Now therefore be it resolved by the school board on Independent School District number 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota as follows. 1. The employment contracts of the following probationary teachers shall not be renewed, and their employment shall terminate at the end of the school day on June 7th, 2013, unless another date is indicated below, in which case the employment of the particular teacher shall terminate on that date. And this year there are 18 people on that list. And be it further resolved, the clerk of the school board shall notify such teachers in writing before July 1st, 2013, of the termination of their employment. And I move resolution HR 5-13-3092.
Could I get a second? Seconded by Member Saliga-Punko. Any discussion? Member Johnston. Wait a second, sir.
Similar comments that I had on the other one, but I think this is more clarification. Again, these are full-time now, right? These are not hourly or anything, or these are actually. Just asking here. So.
Yep. There are 18 individuals. They represent 16.8 FTE. What I will tell you are the individuals on this list, there are, as we say, as the school board sees fit, there's a number of individuals who worked under teaching variances this year. Those variances are issued on a year-to-year basis. How they expire would have to be renewed for next year. If the need were to arise, we, by law, have to look for a fully licensed teacher before we hire a teacher under a variance. Some of these individuals are as a result of a reduction of our title funds, so not general fund, but title funds, and probably about another third are because the positions ended or lack of students for those those areas.
Okay, so what about a third or variances, or have variances then to do their current teaching job? And I'm assuming you're expecting some of these may come back. I mean, we don't know the future, but if things go good, some of those with variances, if nobody else comes along with a proper certification, was it likely that some of these people will, I mean, is it possible, put it that way, that some of these people will come back?
Hold on a second there. There you go.
A number of the people on this list were with us last year also, the year before, and were rehired back this previous year. So.
Okay. Well, could always... go ahead.
I'm going to just interrupt you, Superintendent Gronseth.
Sometimes there is a limitation to how many times they can get a variance before they would be required to go out and get a specific license. For example, if someone was teaching a special education course, they may be allowed for a certain number of years to be able to get that variance, but eventually they do need to get the license. And depending on where all of them are in that process, it would vary.
Okay, I understand, it's something, I understand where you're coming from, but I still don't feel real good about it, but just wanted to express my concerns there.
All right, and I will express that same concern. It's not particularly one of the nicer things that we have to do each year is to have this kind of impact. So, Member Sligapunko.
Thank you, Chair Casper. I just want to make a little bit of a point on this because I've had to do this many times. And as a former teacher in this district, sitting next to a former teacher in this district, and there's another former teacher in the district with Member Westholm, and we do not take great joy in voting for these resolutions. I understand the limitations, but we are all former teachers, and yet we're laying off teachers. It's not fun, but it's something that we have to do. Basically, by law, they have to be terminated for various reasons because of long-term subbing positions or hourly, and you have to do it. It's the fiscally responsible thing to do. So I just want to make that point because it's not easy to do this. So that's all I'll say.
All right, thank you, Member Sligapunko. Just point of clarification, this is termination rather than layoff.
No, it's a termination.
Right.
Yep, that is correct.
All right, thank you. Member Murneke, to you.
Well, I was laid off 4 times, and I received the letters, and for Mr. Swirsky, we have to understand that he has legal precedent to follow and contractual precedent to follow, and a lot of this is bound up in just what he has to do to follow this procedure.
Thank you for that clarification. Member Murneke, seeing no further lights, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-1 with Member Johnston opposing. Back to you, Member Westholm.
Okay, the third resolution is regarding termination of certified long-term substitutes. And whereas the school board desires to provide notice that long-term substitute teaching positions terminate on the date specified in the individual substitute teacher's contract or at the conclusion of the school year, whichever is earlier, now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that the employment of all long-term substitute teachers, including those listed below, shall terminate effective at the end of the school day on June 7th, 2013, unless another date is indicated below, or on the date specified in the individual substitute teacher's contract, whichever is earlier. And there are 13 names on this list this year. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the school board shall so notify such teachers in writing before July 1st, 2013. So I move resolution HR-5-13-3093.
Could I get a second? Seconded by Member Sligapunko. Any discussion? Member Johnston.
Maybe I should ask this one and the other ones too, but I'll ask it on this one for sure, is are we eliminating positions? Now, I think in the last one you said some of those ones that we were terminating, or some of them may have been eliminating some positions, but maybe give me a little more rundown on this one. I mean, do you think we're going to, I guess I'm worried about, are we eliminating FTEs even though they're substitutes? Are we going to be decreasing teacher positions? That's just what I'm looking for here. Well, I should clarify that. I mean, we are by what we're doing, but are we expecting to keep those FTEs next year?
Mr. Swirsky, could you clarify that, please?
Yes. Certified long-term substitutes, these are substitutes that are hired to positions for which regular teachers have rights to. So, for instance, for these positions, a number of them are out on maternity leave, have taken various reasons that they're not in their positions right now, but will be returning to their specific positions. So they're replacing people who are on other board-approved leaves that are returning.
Okay, so I understand that. So this doesn't really impact our FTEs, it's just the back. Okay, got it. But can I go back and ask that question for the other ones? Are the other positions, are they going to be eliminating, or by our action tonight, are we planning to eliminate them, or are we going to come back? Is that okay to ask that question?
Mr. Swirsky?
What I will tell you on the certified probationary periods, in some cases it may be an eliminated position, but in some cases these people were hired. We have other individual teachers who may go out on like a mid-career leave or a policy 4125 leave who will be returning back to the district. This is different than the long-term substitutes. Those people, when they return, they come back in a displaced position and we have to make room for them. So in those cases, some of these individuals are just being replaced by teachers returning from, for instance, a mid-career leave.
Okay, thanks. That clarifies it some, and I'm still got concerns here, and I certainly don't want to be tonight here eliminating any teacher positions, so that's my concern. I'm probably going to vote against this one too, but I do appreciate your clarification here.
And prior to the vote, I want to acknowledge Mr. Swirsky in keeping track of a very complicated process and issues to keep us in compliance with all the laws that we need to be following. So I want to publicly acknowledge your effort, and I know this isn't an easy thing for you to do and to inform our teachers that are going through this process. So board members, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-1 with Member Johnston voting against. That concludes our Human Resources report. Do we have one more thing on there? I'm sorry.
Do we have to approve?
Hold on a second, sir.
Do we have to approve the hourly substitute pay rate sheet? I think we do, don't we?
Yes, we do. I'm sorry. Let's move to that.
It's on page 8, if people are looking for it. Yes, I'm moving this item for approval. The hourly substitute, well, that's the wrong one. Termination.
The hourly substitute rate, pay rate
Yes,
sheet for
right.
2013-14. There is no resolution.
There is no resolution for the hourly substitute.
Let's let Mr. Swirsky again clarify things for us, please.
What we're asking approval for on this rate sheet is on page 9 of your booklet, towards the bottom of the technology intern rate change. We went, I believe it was from a $7 an hour rate to or an $8 an hour rate to $11 an hour rate. This is due to the fact that during the summer, when we're trying to hire interns to configure and reconfigure mass amounts of computers within the district, we were unable to find an adequate number of staff members to work on that. So we're just asking the 1 hourly rate under that technology intern be approved at $11. And these are basically summer assignments and sometimes hourly rates during the school year. There was another question at the HR committee meeting where we were talking about how often are these rates updated or reviewed. We do review them all the time, usually as a need occurs, but the minimum wage, for instance, in this rate sheet was updated January 2012 when the new minimum hourly wage rate went into effect, and then we consequently did change and revise a number of the rates here too. So it is kind of a work in progress, and it's something we evaluate on more or less a as needed basis if we feel we're out of line on a certain rate.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Swirsky. We have it's been moved and seconded. Member Johnson, excuse me.
Make a couple comments here. I mentioned these on the committee meeting, but I do want to state it again. It's that some of these haven't changed for a long time, if I understand. They haven't. And I just think that we as a district, these aren't in the union. These are all, I think, very small number of hours and everything, but yet these are often playground helpers, lunch room helpers. Some of them are. You got the technology, that's different. But we have a lot of people that are making, $7.25, $7.50 an hour. I'd just really like to see us, when we give a pay raise to our other employees, like our teachers and our paras and our custodial staff and our engineers, I'd like to see us give at least if we give 2% to them, I think it'd be just fitting and appropriate to give even these people a 1 or 2%. I don't think that'd amount to very much money, but I think it would show us as being a good neighbor. A lot of these people are, parents that come over and help, or the neighbors that come over and help. And I think we should show I think giving a small, even a token pay raise like 1% would be appropriate. I think it's something we should think about in the future. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Member Johnson. We have a motion and a second to approve the rate change for the technology position. Could I get a vote on that? All those in favor? Aye. And any opposed? That carries 6-0. All right, that concludes, I believe, our HR report. Moving on to our Business Committee report. Member Sligopunko.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm rushing the report here.
I move the Human Resources Committee report for Tuesday, May 21st, 2013.
We did that. We did that.
We did that?
Yes.
All right, I did it again. Now we really know.
Okay, we're good. We're good. It has really moved. All right, back to you, Member Sligopunko, for the Business Committee report, please. Thank you.
Okay, this is the Business Committee report for Tuesday, May 21st, 2013. There's a financial report, all the different areas. Except for I want to just mention the school lunch price increase, which find a recommendation to increase school lunch prices in order to comply with the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. And it's recommended that the Duluth School Board approve the recommended school lunch price increases, and that is something we have to do. Okay, no bids, RFPs, and quotes. Number 3 is policies and regulations. We have policy 3136, travel in district, in state, and out of state. And it's recommended that we approve suspending that. Regulations, drug and alcohol testing, and attached is a new regulation 4036R, drug and alcohol testing as a supplement to policy 4036. And this was presented as informational. We have contract A1 for the Duluth Heritage Sports Center, and it's a 1-year addendum relating to the district's agreement with the Duluth Heritage Sports Center. The addendum extends amendment number 2 for 1 more year. The school board approved that amendment on August 21st, 2012 for the current year, and it's recommended that we approve this addendum. There's a change order, and board members, if you notice, it was in your green folder, and it's change order for Congdon Park. And actually, I'm not sure why it's conveyed as a change order, because it's something that we approved when we were looking at all the different alternates for the Congdon but it's listed as a change order, but it is something that we approved to construct the replacement sidewalk, stairs, and railing at the north side of the school. And so I just wanted to draw your attention to that. I think that's the only thing on there. Okay, and then we have resolutions, and I'll take the first one, which is on page 51, if board members want to turn, if that's all right, Chair Casper, to
Yes,
go right
please.
to the...
Yes.
Okay, let's see, page 51. What is that? Okay, this resolution is support for the property zoning change for Northwood Children's Services. I move resolution B 05-13-3094 dated May 21st, 2013.
Seconded by Member Watson. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Back to you, Member Saliga-Punko.
Okay, go to the next resolution, the next page. Resolution for the classification of fund balances. And this is something we talked about, GASB. We had a discussion about it. But I remove resolution B5-13-3097 dated May 21st, 2013.
Second.
Seconded by Member Watson. Any discussion regarding that resolution? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Moving back to you, Member Saliga-Punko.
Okay, resolution indicating the intent to move forward with an operating levy referendum in November 2013. I move resolution B5-13-3096 dated May 21st, 2013.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Watson. Any discussion? Board Member Johnston.
Yes, I'd like to talk about this a little bit, and to do that, I'd like to amend this. So I make a motion to amend Resolution B5-13-3096 by deleting the final paragraph and replacing it with, be it resolved that the school board renew the existing $365.60 per pupil operating levy. Therefore, the question of renewing the general education revenue of the district shall be submitted to the qualified voters of the district on November 11, 2013, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Then have a bunch of the normal boilerplate stuff that we have on things, and I'll end it off with the clerk is hereby authorized to prepare a sample ballot that complies with all the applicable election laws. And again, I can pass this over to the chair. That is a motion that I'm making.
Could I get a second for that amendment?
I'll second.
Seconded by Member Murneke for pointed discussion. Member Murneke, back to you, Member Johnston.
Sure, thank you, Board.
Oh, wait a second there.
I seconded it.
Yep. No, thank you, Member Murneke. I really want to have a discussion on this. I think it's very important. People sometimes accuse me of being against operating levy, and then I mentioned at the committee meeting that I do support that on certain limitations. I'm not going to give a blanket thing for that, so I'm submitting this to the board, this amendment to this motion, because I think it's important that we go through and have discussion. I'm trying to show the board that I am sincere and having an honest discussion. And I would like to say that I think this is more than just a request of the board to talk to me about the issues that I've got, but I think it's also a consideration that I think the people in Duluth will likely support an amendment of this amount, which is our current amendment. And I think that it is a way, I don't think we're going to, if we pass any at all, we know there's people that are opposed to any referendum, and in some ways I am too, but I think we have to be realistic. I think it's something that we have had for a long time, and I think that I'd be willing to talk to the people of Duluth and saying, as a minimum, I think we should at least pass what we currently have. So that's why I've put this motion forward to the board I'm hoping you will consider it, this amendment, but I'm also hoping that if you don't, that we do sit down and have serious discussions, and I'm throwing that option out too, if this board elects not to accept this amendment, I certainly hope that, that this could be a start of a dialogue within the board, with myself, and also between the board with the community. And I would like to facilitate both of those.
Thank you, Member Johnston. Member Sliga-Punko.
Thank you. Just looking at this, indicating the intent to move forward, I'm thinking, I was actually questioning that we even needed to do this because I know we had looked at intending to move last year, but it might have had the date November 2012. I don't remember. But I think all this is saying, yes, we're going to go for a levy, and then we're going to have discussions about what the amount is going to be. So I almost feel like we need to just move, personally, that we need to just move forward saying, okay, we're going to intend to do it, and then we as a board are going to be discussing what the amount should be. If it's going to be renewed, we still don't know numbers from the state legislature, so we have no idea really what we are going to be looking at. So I think in my mind, it might be just a little bit premature to decide on an amount right now. Just all we need to do is say, okay, we're going to be going forward in November of this year, and we'll discuss later what it's going to be. And I think, Superintendent, that's probably what you're intending. So thank you.
Let's see what he's intending. Superintendent.
First of all, Member Johnston, I appreciate your willingness to support a renewal of the levy. The intent of this is just that, to recognize an intent, and I think that there would be further discussion whether it be a renewal or a renewal plus or less or whatever the decision is a little bit later as we formalize the questions this summer.
Thank you, Superintendent Gronseth. I'm going to just, for a moment, just chime in, and then I'll get to you, Member Johnston, if that's all right. And I, too, want to express my my appreciation for your support of the discussion about a levy, and just point out that you had said at a minimum 365 to support, but if we moved with this resolution that you brought forward, it would create that as that point. So I'm just clarifying with you that you had said as a minimum supporting the 365 and implying potentially a greater support. So I want to get a clarification from you on that as well. So Member Johnston.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to.
During your discussion, you said that as a minimum you would support a 365 renewal.
No, I think as a minimum the community will support that. Again, I'd like to certainly have that discussion both with the board as well as with the community as well too. But again, it's I think that's I should say that's the maximum I think that the community would support, I think. But
and that's what clarification I was asking for from you.
And I hear what you say, I understand. Typically we go through and we pass this intent, we've done that in the past, I understand that. But I think this is kind of important, I think it's time to change that. And I think we should actually put forth a number. And I think that it's time to do that because we are working on the budget still. We have to know what that money is going to be for us to move forward. I think the community wants to know too because this is an issue. We know this is expiring as well. I should have said that. I think if people don't know the current levy that we have, operating levy is about to expire, I think, next year. I think it's really important for the staff, for the students, for the community, for the taxpayer, that we really tell them as soon as we can what we're going to do. So that's why I'm suggesting 2.1. I do want to show the board and the community that it's important to have discussions about this, serious discussions, to show my intent to do that. And also I think we really should do it faster than later. And I think that we should be upfront with our time, and that will also give us time to go forth to the community and really talk about some of these really serious issues. If we wait too long, we're not going to have that opportunity to do that. So that's why I'm presenting this to the board, and I hope that you would consider that. And I really think that we should, I hope that you would just take this as an amendment to change it. But again, if you don't, I would certainly hope that this would still start a dialogue.
So, I'm sorry, so point of clarification regarding that, you would, from what I'm understanding, you would support a renewal of the existing levy at 365, but beyond that, you would not support. Is that correct, or is that your belief that the community wouldn't? And
I believe that's what the community...
Hold on a second.
I believe that's what the community, that's as far as the community would go, yes.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Gronseth.
Another, just a point to clarify, the current levy of 365.60 does sunset June of 2013, and so, 2014. I was thinking fiscal years in my head, so. June of 2014, a vote next November would decide on the levy amount for the year starting 14-15. So it is a year out from there. When you make a decision on an amount, I would highly recommend that we get some advice from some political leaders and some financial leaders in the community. And I urge you not to set an amount this evening, but rather just your intent to go for a levy. There's plenty of time for conversation about amounts.
Thank you, Superintendent. Member Murneke.
I seconded this, and I appreciate the conversation we had. I thought it was an excellent conversation. There's still a little question about our state legislature. We do still have some other questions coming up on funding, and I would agree with the superintendent that what we should do, and also I'll vote against the amendment, is we can carry this on without any problems and set an amount at a later date prior to the election.
Thank you, Member Murneke. We have an amendment and a second. Seeing no further lights regarding that, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Opposed? No, that carries 5-1. Back to the resolution at hand. Any discussion regarding resolution with the intent to move forward with a operating referendum in 2013 November? Member Johnston.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I think you meant it failed.
I'm sorry.
I hope that I misunderstood everybody.
Yes, you are correct, sir.
But just a clarification for the record here, so we know what happened.
Thank you.
You shouldn't have said anything.
I shouldn't have said anything. Sorry, I know. I'm just too honest. I know.
All right, thank you, Member Johnson.
I actually do have a comment.
Okay, back to you.
I am going to begin to show the board and the community that I want to have real discussions here. I'm not going to vote against this. I'm not going to vote for this. I'm going to not vote. So I just want to make that clarification.
So you're going to abstain?
I don't care what you call it. Let's not get to that thing. But I'm not going to vote for it or against it. So however you want to call it.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify to the board and the community that is where I'm coming at this point.
All right, thank you, Member Johnston. Student Representative Tebow.
I'm probably getting too many steps ahead in the process here, and correct me if I am, but I remember talking to some of the students and members of the community that on the last levy, the school board tried to approve that on the actual ballot, the wording was confusing and difficult to interpret, and that if we are going to have another community vote on a future levy, that we should make the point that the wording is easier to understand what is actually being talked about and voted on so that the voter can make informed decisions.
Exactly. Mr. Hanson, could you please unconfuse us?
Board members, I can share with you again that as Superintendent Gronseth mentioned earlier, ballot language is very specific. It's called out and required in statute in particular formats. The number of questions is certainly part of what you'll continue to discuss if, assuming that this goes forward. And but in terms of the specific language, there are some definite restrictions on that as called out in statute, and we want to make sure we follow those. But I certainly appreciate the point that anything that we can do to make it less confusing is certainly something we will pursue as long as we stay within the bounds of the statutes.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Seeing no further discussion, let's move to a vote on that resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-0 with Board Member Johnson abstaining. Moving back to the committee report, Member Sliga-Punko.
Okay, thank you. We have another resolution affirming the date for the school district primary election and the school board member candidate filing period. And we do have to follow the Duluth City Council. So the school district primary election, if needed, will be held on September 10th, 2013, and the school board member candidate filing period will be from July 2nd through July 16th, 2013. I move resolution B5-13-3098 dated May 21st, 2013.
Could I get a second? Seconded by Member Wasson. Any discussion? Member Westholm, you'll have to say that faster. He'd like to third that, yes. Seeing no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 6-0. Back to the committee report, Member Sliga-Punko.
Thank you. And back on number 6, informational, and they're provided for informational purposes only and no action is required. So it's all the usual reports that we have. And then number 7 is future items. A is workers' compensation and property liability insurance policies and premium designation, and B is adoption of the 2014 budget, which I know it's going to take a little bit of time just with the legislature just finishing about a couple minutes before midnight. So I move the remainder of the business report except for the resolutions.
Could I get a second? Seconded by seconded by Member Wasson. Any items to be removed for discussion? Member Johnston.
Mr. Chair, 1F. And I'd like to have a separate vote on 3A1. Separate vote on 4A1. And discussion on 6F and 7B.
All right. Any other board member for items be removed for discussion? Okay, let's move to those. Member Johnson, 1F.
This is our water report, and I've been noticing here this year our student enrollment is sliding a lot. This year, since September, we've lost 212 students. From a year ago, we've lost over 160, depending how you measure things. Everything is depending how you measure your starting and ending point. No matter how you look at it, though, we've lost a lot. We've lost 37 just the last month. And this rate, if it continues for another month, which I'm assuming is going to, we're going to be probably into the mid-200s of lost students this year. This is the highest loss that we've had for 3 years. We're hoping that we were going to try to, that loss was going to be curtailed and we were going to stop that. It doesn't seem to have happened, and I'm just bringing that up, that this is to me, it's a serious concern. I think we have to, again, we have to do better communicating. When I talk to people, just too many people are pulling their kids out of our schools, and we have to find some way to break that. And again, I'm willing to, I'm bringing this up because I want to somehow talk to the superintendent and the board and the staff on how we can do that. I'm just concerned about it, so that's why I brought this up.
Thank you, Member Johnston. Superintendent.
Just a reminder that, the usual, I'm trying to think of the word, the graph that it usually follows, it does fall off at the end of the year, just like it does in December, picks up at the beginning of the spring semester. We also have ALC involved, and we also have several residential programs where kids are going in and out based on the court system. If they're court ordered to go to a residential treatment center, and then they're released, they go back home, and those all count on all of those numbers, and those vary greatly. So to really get a true number, we would have to disaggregate all of that data and trace them back. We also have a large number of kids who are more transient population, where their families are moving, and if they aren't notifying us, it takes us a while for us to catch up with those families to see where they're going to school, where they've moved to, unless they tell us before they leave. So while I recognize that these numbers could be alarming when you're looking at them, that we really need to dig into that to find out exactly what they mean.
Thank you. Member Johnson, were you asking for a separate vote on that? No. Okay. Moving on.
Well, just a quick thing. No, I mean, you're right, Superintendent. I know you're right, but that's why I tried to break it up into, say, last month to a year ago, the same month. If you look at the October, that's, I think, the date that MDE gets is the October number, whichever one it is. No matter how you look at it, it seems like we're in too much of a downward trend. So that's, even though I know what you're saying, you're correct there. I know it's dropped down. 220 sounds like a lot. If you go back a year ago, it's only 150. But hey, 150 is too much. Whatever it is, one student loss is too much. So I do hope to get that conversation going. Thank you.
Thank you. 3A1, you wanted a separate vote on that, Member Johnston? Okay. We will pull that out for separate vote.
4A1.
Or 3A1, isn't it?
No, the next one is 4A1.
He had 3A1 and 4A1 for the in-district, in-state, out-of-state policy. You wanted a separate vote on that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of that, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Of what?
Of
having a
separate vote on the policy 30.
Are we in favor
31?
of having a separate vote?
We are in favor of we are having a separate vote on that. All those in favor of supporting policy 3136 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Moving on to 4A1, the Duluth Heritage Center. You just want a separate vote on that as well, or discussion? Separate vote on that?
Mr. Chair, could I have a B1 too? I just noticed that I want to vote for that, just an affirmative vote for that as well.
Let's back up to that. So BA1, Member Johnson has asked for a separate vote. Any discussion on that? No? All right. All board members in support of the changes to Regulation 4036R signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. Moving on to 4A1, the vote on the Duluth Heritage Sports Center addendum. Any discussion on that, Member Johnson, or just a vote? Just a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 6-0. On to 6F, Member Johnston.
Yeah, I've still, as usual, I have concerns on the change orders. They're not a lot, but these change orders to me are, they're petty, they're trite, they're design errors. I could go on and on, but we shouldn't be doing these. little things for $400, for $331, for $150, $249, that's just silly. And I am going to make a motion that the board not approve these change orders.
Excuse me, we have a motion to not do that. Are you offering them that as an addendum to the, can we do that?
Point of order. We're just voting on, this is a point of order. It's just, we're voting on the change order, yes or no.
Okay.
It's been separated out.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your point, Member Johnson. Moving on to 7B.
Wait, 6F, we have to vote.
He hasn't asked for a separate vote on that.
Well, I will ask for a separate vote, because I'm asking we don't approve it, and I did make a motion to, here to do this, so. I'm making a motion that we go beyond what is in this report and say that we're not going to approve these anymore. We're going to say, no, don't do this anymore. That's what I'm saying. And I'm making that motion so we can tell the administration to quit doing petty change orders.
All right, could I get a second for that? Seeing none, that motion fails. Back to you at 7B, Member Johnston. Here we go. We have to get that together.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. We haven't talked about budget for a long time. I know there's lots of reasons for that. We don't have a budget from the state and stuff, but we pretty much know what we're going to get. I really would like to have some discussions with the board. We know basically what our parameters are. I've had some questions that I'd like to have answered. So again, I'm just bringing that up and hoping that we could start having some, we just got to keep this on the table and talk it over and say, where are we going? You still like this idea? And so that's what I'm asking here, that we do have discussions in the future on that.
Superintendent.
I certainly recognize the need for doing that, and I hope to be doing that now that the legislative session has closed and we can spend a little time untangling all of the new formulas that we've been presented with and figure out where they've added some here and taken some off here so that we know exactly what we're working with. We'll be able to make a recommendation very soon.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent. Seeing no further discussion, Member Saligapunko, have we moved the entire report and we have a second? For that, seeing no further discussion, could I get a motion to accept the committee report? Or a vote to accept the committee report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-1. Moving on to special resolutions. Member Murneke, would you please read the resolutions before us? I turned you on.
Resolution closing Nettleton Elementary School, whereas a public hearing was held on May 6, 2013 on the proposed closing of Nettleton Elementary School, whereas during this hearing people wishing to give testimony for and against the proposed closing were heard and such testimony was considered by the school board, whereas published notice of this hearing was given in compliance with Minnesota Statute Section 123B.51, subdivision 5. Now therefore be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District number 709 as follows. The attached findings and conclusions regarding the closing of Nettleton Elementary School are hereby adopted. The closing of Nettleton Elementary School is necessary and practicable. Nettleton Elementary School is closed effective at the end of the 2012-2013 school year. At this time, the school board does not take any action with respect to the possible sale of Nettleton Elementary School building or property. I move B 513-3100.
I must say, I think you should run all of our board meetings. We have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Seconded by Member Saligapunko. Any discussion? Member Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do have some comments on this. I want to make a few statements. Some of you have probably heard this on my other schools. I'm going to say it again anyway. The hearing officer failed to state the Minnesota Statute 123B.51, which states procedures that schools must follow before closing schools, and I quote that law. Quote, the board may close a schoolhouse only after a public hearing on the question. Parties requesting to give testimony shall be heard by the board, I double quote here, before it makes a final decision to close or not to close the school law, end quote. Our school did not follow this law. Also, Duluth Public School Policy 2075 has also been violated by not having a hearing before the decision has been made to close these schools. And just to clarify that, in June 19, 2007, this board passed Resolution B-607-2457 with the title, quote, approving a long-range facility plan and authorizing further proceedings toward implementation of that plan. And this resolution states, and I quote, the board authorizes all necessary action to, double quote, immediately implement the plan. And now we have a hearing. Almost 6 years after the school, clearly after the school, the Duluth Independent School District 709, clearly, without a doubt, decided to close Nettleton School, and we decided to close Nettleton School prior to having a hearing, which is a violation of Minnesota state law and our own policy. Obviously, anybody knows that we made this decision long ago. There's no question on that. There's also a couple other items in this hearing report that I have issue with. Number 15 states that there has been $5.2 million in savings. This number has no verification, has never been audited or even been reviewed by the district. And it's wrong to include unaudited, even reviewed statements in finding of fact. Also, conclusion number 19 states that if there is no sale of the Nettleton property, the anticipated sales amount will be drawn from the district's general fund. As all of you know, I don't like money being pulled out of the general fund to go to anything to do with our buildings. And I also think that this is a violation of Minnesota Statute 123B.97, and in general, it's a poor idea to even anticipate pulling money out of the general fund to cover in some unforeseen yet or not consummated sale amount. Therefore, I ask this board not to approve these findings and conclusions and not to agree to close Nettleton School until we do the proper proceedings and follow Minnesota law.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Further discussion, Member Wasson.
These are our last two buildings that we are moving to close. I've been to all of the hearings. I don't want it to be seen or thought that our district has not followed any policies or statutes. The Minnesota Department of Education approved our plan. I am not an attorney. I don't believe anyone other than Mr. Westholm sitting on this board is an attorney for legal matters that could be interpreted, nor am I an auditor. Our books are looked over with an auditor every year. We are in compliance by every state of the language that we are reading before us tonight, as we have in the past. And truth be told, the Woodland Middle School building and the Nettleton School buildings will no longer be of use to us come fall.
Thank you, Member Wasson. Seeing no further discussion, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? That carries 5-1 with Member Johnston not supporting it. Member Murneke, on to the next resolution, please. Oh, excuse me.
There we go. Resolution closing Woodland Middle School, whereas a public hearing was held on May 6, 2013 on the proposed closing of Woodland Middle School, whereas during this hearing people wishing to give testimony for and against the proposed closing were heard, and such testimony was considered by the board, whereas published notice of this hearing was given in compliance with Minnesota Statute Section 123B.51, subdivision 5. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 7 and 9 as follows. 1, the attached findings and conclusions regarding the closing of Woodland Middle School are hereby adopted. Closing of Woodland Middle School is necessary and practicable. Number 3, Woodland Middle School is closed effective at the end of the 2012-2013 school year. 4, at this time the school board does not take any additional action with respect to the sale of Woodland Middle School building or property. I move Resolution B 5-13-3101.
Dated May 21st, 2013.
Thank
Could I get
you.
a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Sliga-Punko. Any discussion? Member Johnson.
Same comments, applying this one as the other one.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-1 with Member Johnson not supporting. Moving on to questions or other. Any board members? Seeing none, let's move to an adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.